So right after I was elected mayor in 2013, the city council and the city management brought forward a zone change for the mall area, 110 acres, to allow for a new mixed-use facility. Mayor Evans and the city council passed that, and then I took office, and right after I took office we started looking at a community development agreement for the mall. So a community development agreement, or CDA, is a post-performance tax incentive agreement. This is an incentive to allow the builders to build more than they would normally be able to do. As an example, 25% of the taxes that they pay on property taxes, they would not get back, but 75% they would get back, the Woodburys would get back for the next 20 years. So we passed the CDA. The CDA allows the Woodburys to invest $500 million into redoing and rebuilding the mall into a mixed-use facility. They had flown to Dallas, Texas and Irvine, California and looked at a new concept of what a mixed-use facility would be. So that is at a mall having residential, having retail, and having commercial, all in one area. So you basically live, work, and play in one area and shop. So in that CDA, we felt like that would be a real benefit to the city and would help the mall move forward. Investing $500 million into the mall actually has a 3x factor. So that $500 million goes around through our community 3 times for $1.5 billion. That lifts all ships within our city. So people were concerned that by doing this we were going to raise taxes, we were going to raise fees, we were favoring the big guy over the little guy, and that a lot of people would be hurt in this process. So I felt like that we really needed to get the message out. Now, not long afterwards, about a month later, the city was served with papers for a referendum to overturn our vote by the city council and myself for a CDA for the mall. The referendum vote would take place like a year and a half later in the election cycle, and it would be one that would negate the vote that we had put forward. I felt like it would be important to me to help educate the citizens of Orem. I believe in referendums. My idea was not to fight this referendum, but rather to do an education, information campaign to help the citizens realize what a great thing this would be for the mall and for our city. So I asked our city manager, Jamie Davidson, if he would suggest to the Woodbury family that they hire a campaign manager, which they did. They hired Brian Chapman of BCR Political, and that we put out a positive campaign. The first thing that was suggested that we do is that we hold 4 open houses, and that we have the Woodburys come and stand behind me as I conducted the open house and have them answer any question. So we had Orrin Woodbury, who's 93 at the time, come. We had his sons come, and his brother's sons come, and then we had some of their sons come. So we had 3 generations of Woodburys who stood behind me at the open houses, who were willing to take any question by anyone who was in favor or who was against, any detractor, anyone. So the very first open house, the very first question, a gentleman stood up and he didn't ask a question, he started yelling at me. And he was mad about what I was doing. His son then stood up and started yelling at me as well. So I had the 2 of them yelling at me and I couldn't speak. So I finally went around the podium, I went up to them nose to nose and asked them to please sit down and allow the conversation and the meeting to go forward, which they did. We then went ahead and took questions. We explained. We had a chart up there, and the chart that I wanted was one that I drew out, and the chart had 2 figures at the front, 2 figures in the middle, and 2 figures at the end, showing what the CDA would be like and the mall would be like with it and without it, so that our residents could tell within 3 minutes whether they were in favor or against. So anyway, we went through the open house. We went through 4 open houses, and during those open houses, people started taking their names off the referendum. People also stopped carrying the referendum. And by the end of those open houses, the referendum died and it did not go forward. And what I explained to people was that the investment in this mall is going to lift all ships. I said even the McDonald's across from the City Center building is going to get busier. Well, to that point, the McDonald's across from the City Center building was demolished and a new one has been built that can handle twice as much traffic going through it because they're that busy. I explained that everything else in the city is going to get reconstructed, new buildings are going to get built, and the little guy and the middle guy and the big guy are all going to benefit together. And that is what's happened. We've had 300 new businesses come to Orem. We have 50 new businesses on State Street. We have our car dealerships have been remodeled. We have our restaurant buildings have been rebuilt. A lot has happened. Now, the people who put forward and promoted the referendum did not understand properly the economics of how to run a city. To run a city, you need to have a strong economy. If you have a strong economy, you can do many things. To give you an idea, for the last 8 years, we have balanced our budget every year, which all of the cities in Utah are required to do. But beyond that, we have been able to produce a $4 million surplus every year for 8 years due to the amount of sales tax revenue coming into the city. Our sales tax revenue is up 40% over what it used to be 8 years ago. Most cities have no idea how you can do that. We have a 25% bleed in from Vineyard of people who actually come here to shop. We have a 25% bleed in from Provo of people who shop in Orem rather than Provo. And things are going really well. So the mall, when I first saw it, had lost 2 anchor stores, 10 regular stores, and 14 kiosks. Like I said, the Woodburys went to Dallas and Irvine to see a new way to refurbish the mall. With the use of the CDA, that money that we let them keep, that 75% for 20 years, they have to put back into the infrastructure of the mall. But it's allowed them to take out a credit line and to spend $500 million on this mall. So to give you an idea of the results of that, we have a new parking garage underneath us right here. We have a brand new parking garage being built north of where the new Dillard store is going. On top of that 5-story parking garage, there's going to be a new 4-story office building. When they first announced they were going to build the office building, it was on speculation. Today that office building is fully leased. The other office building behind me is fully leased. There's 1,000 apartments that have been built. They're all fully leased. We have R.C. Willey combined their store from Provo with Orem store and moved it here as an anchor, which nobody ever does that with a furniture store, but they took over the anchor spot. And in that particular facility, since they've moved here, their sales are up 30%. Tucanos moved from Provo up to Orem, their sales are up 30%. Los Hermanos, when they had a fire in Provo, moved up here to Orem. Their comment was, we wish we'd done this 10 years ago. We have a lot of businesses coming here. Dillard's is moving from the Provo Mall and is being built, and nobody that I know of in the country has a brand new anchor store being built at their mall. Just to give you an idea of what's happening across the country, 25% of the malls have gone out of business. And there was a mall built in 1975 similar to the mall here at University Place. That mall had the same anchor stores, Macy's, JCPenney, and they went through the same things that we went through here. In 2013, they started to lose their anchor stores and they didn't know what to do. By 2019, all the stores were gone. The mall had been vandalized. They sold the mall for $1 to the city, and the city went in and demolished the entire mall. Now that mall is the same size as this mall, built at the same time, had the same opportunities, had the same anchor stores, but you can see the difference. And we as a city reap the benefits of that. We're able to buy 3 new fire engines at $1 million each, 2 new ambulances at $750,000 each, 50 new police cars at $50,000 each, and not charge any money, any new taxes any new fees to the citizens because our economy is so strong, our sales tax revenue is so strong. So that helps to make a really strong economy. It was interesting though, and I'd like to tell you the end of the story. The gentleman who yelled at me at the very first open house and screamed at me, I ran into about 4 years later walking down the mall with his wife. And as he saw me across the area we're walking, he made a beeline from where he was at straight over to me. And he grabbed me and he said, "Mayor, I want to tell you something. The mall looks beautiful. This is wonderful. I love what's going on here." He said, "I'm very sorry for all the problems I gave you, for the yelling at you. You were right. This is great. This will help the city. This will be a benefit to all of us. Thank you very much for moving forward with this." And I want to thank the Woodburys for their investment in the city of Orem. They own much of the land in the city of Orem, and they have done a wonderful job of investing. This is their legacy mall. It's the very first mall they built. You may or may not realize, but they went to the city of Provo 3 times requesting to build the mall in Provo, and 3 times were turned away. They came to Orem and we welcomed them with open arms, and this has been an economic driver for our city that has helped build our city and keep our taxes low. We haven't raised our property taxes except for $1 per month to hire 4 new policemen. That's the only time we've done it. This is a huge economic benefit to the city, and we thank the Woodburys for what they're doing.